The long-awaited refresh of Apple's most popular desktop Mac was released about a month ago. Apple added a new design, new internals, a couple of new features, but they also scaled back on the ports. So, how is the new 24-inch iMac after a month? Sponsored by Skillshare. Hey, I'm Jerry, and the new 24-inch iMac felt like it was years in the making, and I guess it probably was for Apple too. But people had been jonesing for it for a while. The previous design iMac had been around since 2012, and it definitely served its purpose, but now we get something new. The new design is obviously what you will notice first about the new iMacs. From the moment you pull it out of the box, which, if you haven't seen my unboxing, the iMac is actually upside down in the box. It's crazy. It's a totally different unboxing experience. But anyway, this crazy thin computer is kind of mind-blowing. There are plenty of third-party displays that are not as thin as this iMac, which has a computer built in, and it's only 11.5 millimeters thin. That's the whole computer. The display, CPU, memory, fans, speaker, camera, and microphones just all together, and it's barely thicker than an iPhone 12 Pro inside of an Apple silicone case. So I guess this is silicone versus silicon. And with the stand on this thing, it weighs less than 10 pounds, which can actually be a problem just doing things like adjusting the screen. Or if you trip on the new magnetic power cord, then this iMac is most assuredly going to follow. This thing is just so light and easy to move if you need to, but if you do accidentally hit or bump this iMac, you can easily tip it over. It just doesn't feel as stable as previous iMacs. But because of its almost portable-like design, this can fit pretty much anywhere you need a desktop computer, including a desk, obviously, or even like those built-in nooks in some houses or apartments. On the back of the new iMac, you get 2 or 4 connection ports, depending on the model you buy, a magnetic connection for the power cord, and a headphone jack on the left side. There's a camera cutout just above the display, which is wrapped in a white bezel, with the speaker and grill fans on the bottom. This 24-inch desktop computer also comes in colors other than gray and silver, as you can probably see, and when they were announced, I said some pretty harsh things about the design and colors. But after a month of having this iMac, I can confidently say that I recommend you get the silver model. Yes, the back of this orange iMac is striking, and when I put it next to the green one, I drool a little bit, just a little bit, but in nearly every case, you will have the back of the iMac facing a wall, and you'll just never see the bright color on the back. Instead, like on this orange one, you get this kind of coppery, orangey color on the stand and an even more pale color just below the display. I wouldn't say that I hate these colors, but they just don't work for me. But if you do decide to go with an orange iMac, or green, or blue, pink, yellow, or even purple, then it's going to stand out in whatever room that you put it in or whatever environment you place it in. And if you have it for a number of years, then it may not always go with whatever room decor you decide to put in later. Silver kind of goes with everything, and I think it will just stand up better over time versus a bright color in a room. Now, I mentioned a white bezel a moment ago, and myself and a number of other creators were not really happy about the white bezels on the new iMacs because white bezels can have an effect on the white balance when doing color work and lighting and things like that. I'm sure there are a lot of reasons that Apple chose white for the new iMacs, and I know there are plenty of people that like it. Although I prefer black bezels, I can say that in my use over the last month, I have had no issues from the bezels that I can recall trying to verify colors or brightness on this display. And like most things, once you start using it, it just kind of fades away. And speaking of the display, it's great. It is the same quality display that you've come to expect from Apple displays. It's a 4.5K Retina display, which at 24 inches, that just equates to the same pixels per inch as the previous 4K iMac and the current 27-inch iMac. Heck, even the 32-inch Pro Display XDR has the same 218 pixels per inch, so you're getting a nice, crisp, sharp Retina display. I pretty much have zero complaints or issues with the display on this iMac because besides the sharpness, it gets bright at up to 500 nits. It's color accurate, it has wide P3 color, and if you want, there's True Tone to change the white balance with the lighting in your room. The only thing that this iMac doesn't have compared to the 2020 27-inch iMac is HDR compatibility. But using this display every day is super easy and enjoyable, whether that's watching a video, playing a casual type game, surfing the web, or even more professional work like editing photos and videos. I prefer a little bit larger display like 27 or 32 inches, but this 24-inch display can definitely get the job done. And just like with changing your phone sizes, your brain catches up and you just get used to it. Along with the display, there are some pretty good speakers as well. Apple spent a few minutes on the iMac announcement talking about the new 6-speaker array inside the new iMacs. There are a couple of force-canceling woofers and a tweeter on each side, which give the iMac a very unexpected amount of bass and clarity. And I do have to admit that I do think that the speakers sound pretty good, especially for the size and the fact that they fit in such a thin case. The woofers are not going to shake your house or anything. In fact, you won't even really feel them. But you do get a good clear separation between the low and high end of audio, and they sound good. The 27-inch iMac does get louder and has some more punch, but I think that the 24-inch is probably slightly more clear. Beyond videos and music, I've been doing a lot of audio calls for work using this iMac, and I've had no issues hearing everyone else clearly. I will frequently pace around my office while on a call and head back to the iMac when I need to unmute and say something, and that's where the new studio mics come in. Now, I can't really say how the mics sound on the other end of the call, but since I started using this iMac for work calls, I have not had a single instance of people saying that they couldn't hear me, or that I wasn't clear, or that I had some kind of echo or distortion. Using previous Macs, iPhones, and iPads, it wasn't uncommon to get some kind of negative feedback when using them as speakerphones. Now, if you do need to engage with others via video chat, Apple did a major update on the camera for the new iMacs. Just like with the 2020 iMac, there's a 1080p camera built in now that also uses the new image signal processor built into the M1 chip, which we'll get to in a moment. The result is probably the best FaceTime camera experience I have ever used in a computer. For years, the iPad and the iPhone have had a much better video call experience than Macs. And now the new iMac is right on par. It's brighter, sharper, does a much better job with colors and grain. Here's an example of the new mic and camera systems in the new 24-inch iMac. This camera is very bright and very clear compared to my previous 2020 iMac. Like, just looking at it on the screen, you can see a very clear, distinct advantage of this camera on this 24-inch iMac. And the studio mics on here, you be the judge. How does it sound? I'm not using any external microphone. I'm only using the built-in microphones on this 24-inch iMac. So there's more to talk about with ports and accessories and processor, but all of that depends on which model of iMac you get. The base model iMac is going to come with the 8-core M1 with the 7-core GPU, 8GB of memory, and 256GB of storage. And on the backside, you will get 2 Thunderbolt ports, all for $12.99. If you upgrade to the mid-tier, you get an M1 with an 8-core GPU, 2 additional USB-C ports, an Ethernet port on the power adapter, and Touch ID on the keyboard for a total of $14.99. At this point, you must be familiar with the M1 processor, right? You have to be if you're watching this. Overall, the M1 processor performance in the iMac is very similar to the performance on the other M1 machines. There is a slight graphics performance difference between the base and mid-tier iMac with the extra GPU core, but other than that, they are very similar compared to each other. I have been using this mid-tier model iMac for a month, and the performance of the machine is fantastic. Because of the single core performance that beats almost every other processor, every little thing you do from opening apps or web pages to scrubbing through video timelines is fast and fluid, even on the base model. There are a million videos talking about the M1 performance, and at this point, I just have to say that the M1 is fast enough for most people for most tasks. The only issue I see sometimes is a stutter or a beach ball if I'm editing a really large video with a ton of other apps open, which I think is actually more related to memory than the CPU. Other than that, the day-to-day performance just lets you get your stuff done. Like many people, I do have concerns about Apple removing some of the ports on the back of the iMac. Most people still have USB-A accessories, and now you have to have a dongle to plug in that one flash drive that you have. And if you have a digital camera, you may need a dongle or a card reader. If you do go with an upgraded iMac model, you will get an Ethernet port on the power adapter, but I do think that it's a mistake. And it feels really forced for Apple to limit the ports on the back of the iMac when the Mac Mini still has them. Luckily, I think that the solution that works for me fits no matter which model you end up getting. And that is using an external dock or hub like these from CalDigit. With a single cord, you can get back all of the ports Apple removed, including USB-A, additional USB-C, card readers, Ethernet, and more. You can even connect a second display if you want. If you need more than the base 256GB of storage, but don't want to pay Apple prices, you can go with an external drive, and if you want the fastest storage, you should look at a Thunderbolt drive like the 4 I tested in a previous video. Thunderbolt speeds on the M1 processors are not quite as fast as they are on the Intel Macs in a lot of tests, and I've shown that in previous videos, but like with the M1 itself, it's fast enough for almost any need. The best thing probably about getting the upgraded model or adding to the base model is the Magic Keyboard with Touch ID. It's so nice having that Touch ID sensor right there for quick unlock and login and Apple Pay purchases and authenticating across the system. Oh, and it matches the color of your new iMac. As with all Apple biometrics, it just feels good and is intuitive to use. If I end up going back to my 27-inch iMac, I know that I will instantly miss it. But what you shouldn't miss is this message from our sponsor. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes to learn new skills, including topics on illustration, design, freelancing, filmmaking, and more. Skillshare is for lifelong learners and real working creatives made by other creatives. Millions of us are using these curated classes that are built to fit any schedule and skill level, and you can use the new iMac I talked about today to build out your own YouTube channel with the help of MKBHD's new YouTube Success class. Marquez does a great job of breaking down how he creates a video from idea and script to editing and growing your channel. I loved being able to compare his process to mine and start improving my workflows. I was able to learn new techniques for shooting my videos, including placement of microphones and lighting, and even how to construct a better script. If you want to check out Marquez's class, you can do that today, like right now, using the link below, and the first 1,000 of you will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. And my thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. So, after 1 month, I'm really impressed with the new 24-inch iMac with M1. It has a nifty new design that seems impossible, colors if you want, a new keyboard option with Touch ID, and fantastic power to get you through anything a regular computer user would need. Now, this isn't the Pro iMac that a lot of people were hoping for in design and power, but it's a great start and a good indication of what we can come to expect in the next few months or years. But what do you guys think? Do you like the new iMacs, or were you expecting something different? Let's talk below. If you're trying to decide between this 24-inch iMac and the previous 2020 27-inch iMac, check out this video right over here. Hit the thumbs up button if you liked it, hit subscribe if you want, and I'll see you next time.